There exists an English legend, the truth of which is up for debate. In the 12th century, a pair of children were seen climbing out of a wolf pit. They had no immediate family, they did not speak any English, and perhaps most strangely, they were said to have green skin. Today, we look at the fact and fiction behind the story of the Green Children of Woolpit. This is Red Web. Welcome back, Task Force, to Red Web, the show all about the unsolved behind this world of ours. Everything from true crime to internet mysteries and conspiracies, and sometimes just a trickling of cryptids and aliens in there. I like to zest it up. I am your resident mystery enthusiast, Trevor Collins, and joining me hearing about this mystery for the very first time, Alfredo Diaz.
Gather around, Task Force. Another week, another tale. This one's weird.
I saw your eyebrows go way up to your hairline when I said wolf pit.
They shot up there. They're now connected to my hairline. God, that would be very weird looking.
So surprising. Okay, Whoopi Goldberg with no eyebrows.
Just blended in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the first half was already very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Children coming out of a wolf pit.
Yeah.
But now we're throwing in green skin.
Green skin. That's the hook of it all. And that's what we do here. If you're new to the Task Force and you're new to Red Web, what we try to do is break down the backstory and then give you the theories trying to answer that. But we also try to bring a pragmatic lens to assess, is this folklore? Is this a story? And we're going to get into all that. But green skin is definitely the cornerstone of this interesting story. I'd never heard of this one.
Look, I mean, over time, if you shove people, things in an environment, they will adapt. But that takes tens of hundreds of years for evolution to take its, to do its thing.
Unless it's the early 2000s and you're watching the X-Men flicks.
That's true.
It can happen like that.
A giant boost, and then doesn't take, so you kind of turn into putty.
Right. You become Melt Man. Spoiler. Ancient film at this point. Dust off the VHS.
We always bring things back to movies, and the thing I can think of is The Descent, where it's just like the people just have lived underground for so long that they have adapted. Echolocation they can't see.
Yeah,
that's just how they've lived.
Absolutely. And film is our love language. It's the way I speak in metaphors to just say that's like that movie. But no, this one's really interesting. And when you said shove, I thought you were going to say something about you shove somebody filled with peas enough that their skin goes green, just like the recent, there's a lot of stories coming out now about carrots, people trying to eat a bunch of carrots to get beta carotene, and the more beta carotene is in your system, it kind of makes your skin a little bit more orangey, so it gives you a kind of a tanny glow. That's a big thing right now.
What?
Yeah, you're probably on the wrong algorithm on TikTok if you're not seeing that.
I think I got
freak talk is what I've got.
Yeah. Man, I kind of want to see what the severe end of that is. How orange do you really get?
I'm going to get you some carrots. We'll find out on Case Files.
I don't like carrots.
Speaking of, you don't like carrots? That would be an awesome episode of Case Files, though.
Just make Alfredo eat a food he doesn't like?
For like 3 months, he just eats a bunch of carrots he does not like.
Oh my God.
Ugh. Anyway, Case Files, just a small announcement here, Task Force. It is coming back. So go ahead, subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/redwebpod, and gear up for some end-of-year episodes of Case Files. It is, as it was, a variety show about the mysteries of this world, digging into spooky stories, reacting to clips online, looking at tech, but also analyzing our Halloween special. And to kind of date this episode, we're recording this on Halloween. So happy Halloween here in the room. But yeah, the Halloween special, we went to the USS Hornet. It is out and available. Go check it out and head to Rooster Teeth, the app, the website, and you can watch us watch along with you. We did a kind of behind the scenes director's commentary style with that. If you want even more juicy details, first members also get deleted scenes, extended cuts, all the good stuff. Become a first member at redwebpod.com/first. And now with all of our patting ourselves on the back and shout outs and everything aside, let's dive into the Green Children of Woolpit. As always, as we dive into this episode, a list of our sensitive topics can be found in the description. In the 12th century, the people of Woolpit made a strange discovery. Woolpit, by the way, is a village in Suffolk, England. And by some accounts, this occurred in the year 1150, probably one of the oldest mysteries we've covered so far. Now, witnesses say they saw 2 children climb out of a wolf pit, which is supposed to be used as a trap for wolves, as you can imagine, to protect livestock, things of that nature, just a deep pit to trap any sort of livestock predators. It's also how the village got its name, because humans are simple. We name things after what we see.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, look at superheroes. Batman, Spider-Man.
Is that a man? And is he a bat?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yep. It's just real easy naming conventions.
Mm-hmm. So the 2 children that climbed out of this pit were a boy and a girl. They were alone, and they had no other people around them. They spoke what seemed to be an unknown language to the people of Woolpit, and it was only described as gibberish by all accounts. They also seemed to wear strangely colored clothing. On top of that, their skin itself was an odd color, green, and no one had any idea where these children had actually come from. They were then brought into the village and taken in by a squire, Sir Richard Conn. He attempted to feed them, but they both refused to eat anything that he offered. In fact, the children were disgusted by almost any normal food offered to them. At some point, they actually discovered what's called a broad bean or a fava bean growing in his garden, and they picked up most of those that were growing and then ate them raw from the ground. As the story goes, they survived solely on these fava beans for months before gaining interest in any other type of food. Very strange behavior.
I mean, honestly, probably like a healthy behavior, though. I mean,
Yeah,
you're just
true.
eating you probably need more nutrients than that, but
If you're gonna pick one thing, a vegetable's not a bad one.
Yeah. It seems like they lived in their whole world. The things I'm curious about is like, how deep is this hole? Like, who birthed them? Who raised them?
Yeah.
Like, these were kids. How old again?
We don't know. They're undetermined age.
Yeah, that's true.
Later we'll get and I'll kind of spill some of the fava beans here. The girl later grows up to learn a little bit more of English, and so she can give a little bit more detail about their encounter, but I think it was assessed maybe what she was about 11.
Yeah, we never had official ages. Based on artwork depicting the story, they're roughly seen to be around 8 to 10-ish, somewhere in that area. But yeah, there's never been a concrete number
Got it.
from
Christian,
what we find.
Our man in the chair, everyone.
Resident Googler.
Speaking of that, since this is probably one of our oldest mysteries that we've ever done, this is just more of like, I guess for myself and the task force, a peek behind the curtains. Like, what is the difficulty behind researching something this far back, right? Like, we've done stuff in the 50s and whatnot, and it's just like, okay, it gets more hearsay. But like, what do we even have going this far back?
For this mystery in particular, we'll actually talk about that exact thing. Like
it's that gut check, I'm telling you.
Yeah,
creepy.
He's on it. Later in the theories, because the issue with the older mysteries, and Jillian is obviously the lead researcher and owns the outline assembly at this point. Trevor and I just kind of help when needed, but the older the story is, the more things can get lost through the passage of time. So whenever we do older things, we almost always have to add that qualifier of like, this is what we can find, but it passes from this person to this person to this person, and it turns into essentially a game of telephone. So we really don't know how accurate it may be now as we're looking at it and reading it.
It can be quite maddening how flimsy our historical records can actually be. But that's also why we wanted to take the lens on this particular one. And like Christian said, we'll talk about it later, but the lens of, is this folklore? Like, is this a legend? And if so, what was it maybe stemming from? Or is this a real story? And how can we assess it from that angle? What practical answers can we assess to it? So, and we'll get into all that with the theories, but suffice to say, this mystery really gripped the town, the village, because there were no known family members. They kind of came out of nowhere. Now, the wolf pit itself is an interesting, though light detail of the story. Christian, I would be curious how deep an average wolf pit would be, but later on, the kids start to tell stories about caves and other darker areas. So it's almost like, is the wolf pit itself a misnomer? That's something we'll also kind of assess.
Yeah, because the thing is, you've got to think, when you go that far back, right? We only don't do certain things because we've learned from generations prior that it's just not efficient. But like, when you go so far back and you have such a small circle in terms of like technological advancements and the way you think about like everything is just so young, the mind itself, the human. Yeah, I think people back then were testing out, well, the weather like outside sucks, so let's just start building in caves, or let's start living in caves, let's start raising families in caves, you know.
100%.
Like there's got to be a whole group of people that just dedicated their lives to being in caves because they just thought like that was the future, that was the most efficient way to live.
You have people living in mesas. One of the popular ones I know of is Mesa Verde, out in kind of like mountainous areas of like Colorado and Utah, and like in that arena, Arizona, things like that. But yeah, we talk about it slightly in the Hollow Earth theory episode.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people want to go like all the way to Hollow Earth, but then some people go, well, is there a pragmatic answer? Here are examples of either legends, folklore, or examples of people living subterraneously. But now the children, these green children, over time lost their green coloring. We don't know how long it was that it took them to lose it, and eventually they did also start eating regular food. The boy and the girl actually even started learning English, but the girl was ahead of the boy since he began to grow sickly. Again, the timeline is a little lost here, it's a little blurry, but we do know that he grew sickly not too long after being found. After becoming ill, he and the girl were actually baptized, though unfortunately soon after, the boy passed away. Eventually, the girl actually mastered English, becoming fluent in it, and then took the name Agnes, and then married a man in Norfolk. Supposedly, he was an ambassador for Henry II. Now, once Agnes learned English, she could actually properly explain where she and her brother came from. So we have two quotes from her. Quote, "We are ignorant of how we arrived here. We only remember this, that on a certain day, when we were feeding our father's flocks in the fields, we heard a great sound, such as we are now accustomed to hearing at St. Edmund's, when the bells are chiming. And whilst listening to the sound in admiration, we became on a sudden, as it were, entranced, and found ourselves among you in the fields where you were reaping." And the other quote we have is this, quote, "The sun does not rise upon our countrymen. Our land is little cheered by its beams. We are contented with that twilight, which among you precedes the sunrise or follows the sunset. Moreover, a certain luminous country is seen, not far distant from ours, and divided from it by a very considerable river." End quote. So in this, she is not only describing how she went missing, what she remembers beforehand, but she also is now vividly describing, in this kind of Old English way, the land in which she was living with her brother, or at least this boy. And it seems like it was perpetual twilight, which is interesting.
Man, you're saying it. That old English. You just kind of go, wait, hold on.
It's all twisted.
Yeah.
It's not so direct.
And I go, 'twas once that of the,
right, is.
Yeah.
So if it flew over your head, I can recount it.
Yeah,
if you
recount that in non-English.
Right.
Less for me.
Right.
More so for those listening.
Right, for the buff ears out there.
Yeah.
All right, so the first quote is kind of saying, all they remember was feeding the animals in her father's farm, and that at some point they heard what this town would call church bells. And basically that's why she's referring to St. Edmund's. They're like, that's what it sounded like. Not that we knew it was church bells, we just admired the sound. And when we followed it, suddenly something happened. We were entranced by the sound. And then suddenly we were here where you guys were harvesting your crops, like time skipped. Meanwhile, the second quote is kind of saying that in this land that they were in, the sun doesn't really rise, nor does it set. It stays at a kind of twilight area. And that's where she says it's the same as ours near sunset and sunrise. So that dusk dawn time frame, that's what she said it always looked like. And that another country, in fact, she calls this land the land of St. Martin, or St. Martin's land. There's a, as she says, luminous country seen from this kind of homeland, this mysterious land, and that it was separated by a, quote, considerable river. This could be a lake, it could be an ocean. But in some way there was a land visible. And we'll kind of dive into that. But it's a very interesting description, and if we're thinking about England, and if we're thinking about certain times of year, there are times where if you go north enough, I'm thinking like way north Scotland or Norway, Sweden, even more north, there are times where you can end up with a winter with no sunlight, or a summer with all sunlight and a sweet spot in between where the sun just kind of kisses around the horizon.
Ooh.
That's just my kind of initial thoughts.
Yeah,
but,
worst case scenario, it's dark for a month, 30 days a night.
Right, vampires coming.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, at first I was, I actually got most of that. At first I was thinking, okay, this perpetual kind of like area, maybe that's the caves, but now it just seems like they're talking about a whole different realm altogether.
100%.
Like this is just some weird place where time functions differently, light, the sun, all of that functions differently.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and they expand in other verbose ways. I don't have their quotes with me, but suffice to say, they talk about living in endless twilight, but they talk about living underground, which is kind of what you're picking up on. And they also said that everyone in the land of St. Martin, this place you could see across this body of water, also had green skin like these siblings once had. One version of the story even claims that the entire world was green, not just their skin. So let's just say, I don't know what plants they would have had in this mysterious land, but trees with green bark, green leaves, green grass, green sky, whatever. Everything was green. That's one version. Now, by some accounts, Agnes and her brother were helping with her father's cattle when they found actually a strange cave. This could be that kind of wolf pit misdirect potentially. Now, there's another version of this story that is subtly different, and it claims that they actually followed the cattle into this cave. But either way, they ended up going through a dark cave, following the sounds of bells, which could be heard somewhere being struck in the distance, at which point they then kind of broke back out into sunlight and then became disoriented. It's almost like this weird Alice in Wonderland time dilating moment where, yes, they saw this other land, they were there long enough to know what the things were called and what things looked like, but also when they recount the story, it seems that they kind of went in the cave and came back out and suddenly they were just like lost, like confused in the sunlight. And then, of course, this is when the villagers found Agnes and her brother.
Yeah, I mean, I think Alice in Wonderland is a great way to put it. Kind of just a little lack of memory. And I mean, some forms, depends what kind of form of Alice you're looking at, right? Some Alice forgets. Well, actually, a lot of them Alice forgets. Time skips or functions differently. And it's interesting how they remembered like pieces. And
vivid pieces.
Yeah. They're like vivid pieces that they remember, but that's just about it.
I mean, it's true. And it's a gripping tale, but that's really all the story has to offer as far as background, as far as minute differences and the story details. Like I wanted to offer those as well. But now let's talk about the theories. Not only the theories that attempt to ground this fantastic story in a practical reality, some are a little bit more in the paranormal realm, which I always appreciate. And then some are addressing it from a folklore standpoint. And, legends and folklore usually are based on something, whether it be a motif or a message.
Yeah.
We're going to get into all of that. I love that we have 3 different angles of theories on this one.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Some mysteries, and that's just, the way it kind of just crumbles, but some mysteries just kind of lean into like, okay, it's all science-based.
Yeah. Yep. Or some are just like, it's all the opposite. It's all paranormal.
Right, yeah.
And there's no way to really dissect it tangibly, but yeah. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by BetterHelp. The end of the year season always stirs up a mix of emotions, doesn't it, Task Force? It's natural to feel a bit overwhelmed or even a touch of sadness this time of year. That's where therapy comes in. It's like a little beacon of light amid all the chaos that can help you develop the tools to navigate the roller coaster of the season. If you're thinking about starting therapy, BetterHelp is a great option. The best part is it's entirely done online. Love that part. And it makes it super convenient no matter what your schedule is. It's super flexible and it's tailored just to you. You fill out a quick questionnaire and then they match you with a licensed therapist super easily. And I love that fact. I love the questionnaire that they have. It's super approachable. It's not too in-depth, but it's just in-depth enough so they can get to know your personal needs and find you the right person. And I love the fact that you can switch to a different therapist at any time. That is the most essential part, is finding somebody that connects with you, and they make it so easy. Because going into therapy for the first time can be a very daunting task. BetterHelp makes it easier for you. Find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/RedWeb to get 10% off your first month. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/RedWeb. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Uncommon Goods. Uncommon Goods makes your holiday shopping stress-free by scouring the globe for the most remarkable and truly unique gifts for everyone on your shopping list. Whether it's your Secret Santa or your entire family, it doesn't matter. From art and jewelry to kitchen, home, and bar, Uncommon Goods has something for everyone. Uncommon Goods looks for products that are high quality, unique, and often handmade or made in the U.S. to make the most meaningful, out-of-the-ordinary gifts anywhere. And with every purchase you make at Uncommon Goods, they give back $1 to a nonprofit partner of your choice. I love that. So not only are you giving to your friends and family for the holiday season, you are also giving to a nonprofit. And I also love that they have a wide swath of products I've never even seen. Again, their name says it all. It's uncommon.
I mean, the way they categorize it too, it makes it so easy, especially for the holiday season when everyone, like me, or maybe not me, but maybe people that are, just shop last second.
Right.
Like they have categories like gifts under $50, gifts under $100, customer favorites, like gifts for birthdays, weddings, anniversary gifts. So it's nice to like just kind of pinpoint what kind of specific celebration you're aiming for and go right to it.
Absolutely. And then when you got that list, they say, let's put a price point on it. Anything under 50. You got a tab for it, like Fredo said. And their products are all really special. And so it just makes scouring the internet a lot easier when you can go to one place.
You don't want to be the person giving another gift card.
No way. You don't want holiday cards flying out the wazoo. You want to give something thoughtful. To get 15% off your next gift, Task Force, go to uncommongoods.com/redweb. Again, that's uncommongoods.com/redweb for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods, they are all out of the ordinary. So a theory proposed in 1998 by 14 Times was that the Green Children of Woolpit were Flemish immigrants. Many Flemish people moved to England in the 12th century, though they were persecuted and some were killed by King Henry II. The gibberish that they were then kind of described as speaking could have been Dutch, and perhaps the people of Woolpit just weren't familiar with that language. And if you hear any language for the very first time, it's going to feel a little odd.
That's true. You think about it, like, we're exposed to at least hearing different languages, right? Because of entertainment and the internet, all that. But like way back then, where you could only travel so far, who knows?
Oh yeah, you grew up in a very small village. You think of the movie The Village, like they only know each other, or at least
they're very
the
much concealed and contained. And even here, it could just be more so, well, we have everything we need here. You go traveling further, you have less.
Yeah.
It's all unknown.
Yeah,
you
for
can
sure.
only go so far.
It's expensive to travel in the 1100s.
Yeah, also
I mean?
It's just like
dangerous.
How, right? Like grabbing a boat, was much of the world charted at that point?
God, that's a good question.
You know what I mean? Like it starts to get so far back. I'm just like, wait, how efficient were boats?
Yeah.
How, like, was it a luxury back then?
It's all possible. I admit my full ignorance on this time frame of humanity, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, we're no historians.
Right. I know my big hits like the medieval ages, the dark times, right? Like Magellan, but like even that, was a dangerous exploration. You could pick up all sorts of worldly diseases that you had no idea about. You're encountering a whole lot of people of different backgrounds, and it's just like it was dangerous and a lengthy endeavor just doing that. So a small village, likely not a worldly populace. Either way, Agnes and her brother may have been orphaned as a result of this persecution, and eventually they grew ill from starving and became malnourished. We'll talk a little bit more about that throughout some of these theories, but in particular, this theory says that they may have been suffering from hypochromic anemia, also known as chlorosis. This is a type of anemia that makes the red blood cells much smaller and paler than you would see in a normal healthy person. It's often caused by the lack of iron, i.e. malnourishment, blood loss, blood disorders, or things like lead poisoning. Symptoms can include fatigue, dry skin, dizziness, increased heart rate, lack of an appetite, and green skin. The dizziness from, seeing the sun,
that is
symptoms.
Wow, that's an actual thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have science backing the color of their skin. Because that, for me, I was like, okay, well, that one's off the bat. I was like, that's the wild part right there, green skin. Sure. But I could see that. I mean, there's different things that change your skin color in severe situations.
Absolutely. And I don't know how vivid green it would be, But to a healthy population in this village, you'd be like, that's green, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's way more green. But of course, this would explain why that greenish hue went away as they started to eat a more healthy, well-rounded diet. And
that connects.
And it would also explain the fava beans. I mean, they're eating these fava beans because, they do need to eat, but because of their lack of appetite, and I speak from firsthand, just a few weeks ago, I was ill. I was like, I'd feel nauseous if I had more than like 3 bites of anything. And so if they're looking at food with this lack of appetite, becomes that vicious cycle, the malnourishment, lack of appetite, not feeling well.
Yeah.
And so all that kind of corrected as they began to eat properly.
Yeah. And then the younger brother passed away because of just going malnourished for so long.
Totally.
Huh.
Yeah.
I will say, in regards to your note about the severity of the green skin and looking at example pictures for research on the outline, they're not necessarily looking like the Hulk, full-blown green, but it is a noticeable green tint to the skin.
Got it.
Yeah.
Which is definitely not a common natural pigment that you would see, right?
Exactly.
So of course it would stand out.
Exactly.
And it would be notable, just like the blue people of Kentucky, when it's like, which was much more vivid actually, but like it stands out. So this theory also states that Agnes and her brother may have also come to Woolpit from Fornham St. Martin, which is also in Suffolk and about 10 miles, 1.6 kilometers from Woolpit. Agnes may have misremembered the name considering she was so young and didn't really know English at the time, and they may have spent time in the nearby Thetford Forest, which has very little light and many cave systems. Though this area is further to the north of Woolpit and Fornham St. Martin, some small wrinkle, but it does answer some of what their memory has to offer. In fact, at Bury St. Edmunds, another nearby town, bell chimes could be heard often.
Oh.
So it connects a lot of the residual details.
Yeah, it's filling in a lot of the gaps nicely.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing. I don't know enough about England and history to pull this one apart. It's not answering everything succinctly, but also you could say that part of that could be the child's memory. It could also be the malnourishment coming into play. I mean, the fact that there's no known family members that came to the table. It's like there's a lot of details missing on the experiential side in general. But this theory does fill in some gaps.
Yeah, it lines up nicely. And I mean, it doesn't make for this like type of fantasy story being woven. It kind of grounds it a bit more.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm more of a skeptic. So I'm sitting here going, well, okay, so what was the scientific reason for the green skin?
Yeah. And there's another one, and we're going to dive into it right now. So another more realistic, more grounded theory, as you put it, is that the children might have been suffering from arsenic poisoning. So this theory stems from a slightly different version of the story of the Green Children of Woolpit. This story claims that the children were in Norfolk, kind of like the previous theory, yet that they were poisoned by their uncle or caretaker, whoever their kind of
guardian was.
Yeah. So this story goes on to say that the uncle left the children in the woods to die, yet they survived and eventually found their way to Woolpit. This is perhaps why no parent figure, guardian, or anything came forward. It could also address a few things because, and we've talked about arsenic poisoning a few times in this show, specifically like the Bell Witch haunting. Fantastic episode if you want to check it out. But some of the symptoms include nausea, vomiting, shortness of breath, and sore throat, abnormal heart rate, low blood pressure, the feeling of pins and needles, a garlic-like odor, and long-term exposure can cause skin lesions and the changing in skin color, as well as things like cancer. In extreme cases, in fact, arsenic can cause hallucinations, and these hallucinations could explain why the children thought that they might have been from another world, some subterranean kind of location, though this theory doesn't really explain the unknown language.
Yes. But could they be delusional enough to just start speaking gibberish?
Absolutely. It's totally possible.
The thing that doesn't fill in the gap for me is just the loss of memory, which when you're reading through that list of stuff, I was like, okay, where is it?
Right.
I'm like, it's nailing this, it's nailing that. Yeah, because then how would they forget their uncle? It at least seems like they were old enough to remember, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
having someone.
Yeah, it seems like they remember literally nothing except for, and remember, actually, I take that back. Agnes refers to working on her father's farm.
True.
Feeding the livestock in a sense. So that is interesting that
but
an
it does
uncle
seem like
play.
it could be Right, the forgetting of the uncle, but also arsenic seems like it does take time. So it'd have to be a reoccurring thing, right?
Yeah. Unless it was inadvertent natural poisoning. I don't know. It's an interesting angle. And again, it's more pragmatic. It has a few more holes in it. And there is something to be said about memory loss due to trauma. Again, if you take stock in this particular angle of the story, I don't know what else it has to say about the uncle relationship. But if you're in a position where this person is poisoning somebody, it's not a bright and colorful relationship.
True.
But yeah, I don't know. It is something to think about. And it is a different way to answer for the green skin.
It is. It's just not as well-rounded as the previous one.
Right. I think it's a little less, maybe accurate. I don't know.
But I do like, as always, exploring all the little theories, regardless of some having more weight than others.
Yeah. Now I'll give you $5 if you can guess this next theory. I do this every time he knows what it is.
Is that aliens?
Oh, baby. $5 coming your way. So I jest, but there's an interesting angle to this one, a historical one. So many people in modern times, of course, have suggested aliens. I think aliens have become kind of a meme, both in one sense we have a lot of sightings, but on the other side, it is commonly the go-to of our current era. If you don't know what it is, it's aliens. And so on one hand, you have the skeptics. On the other hand, you have the believers. Of course, there's a spectrum there, but I don't know. I don't want to make light of the alien thing. It is funny sometimes how shoehorned in it is. But either way, this particular theory, the idea of aliens, isn't just a modern one. It's a theory that presented itself as early as 1621, a time where you really don't hear about otherworldly beings.
No, I didn't even think about that. That's a very interesting, just thought. Way back when, way before, the Hollywood chewed up the thought of, aliens and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What were they thinking back? I guess more so back then it would be, gods.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? If anything
more religious,
like that, more religious
iconography.
Stuff. Yeah. But at some point, I'm sure someone was like, it must be gross with tentacles and, you know what I mean? Yeah.
I don't know. And I'm so happy you said that, because this one kind of straddles that religious angle, but also does bring in some interesting points to make it more, if you will, scientific, to address otherworldly life forms, right? So in The Anatomy of Melancholy, a medical and philosophical text suggesting melancholy may be the cause of many illnesses, among many other topics, Robert Burton proposed that the green children, quote, fell from heaven. But the children claim they came from a cave in an area of twilight, so some have suggested that instead the children came from an underground world. We're going to address all these different angles. Possibly, with regards to this underground world, it's possibly the legendary world of Agartha, a legendary kingdom said to be located somewhere within the surface of the earth, which again relates back to the idea of hollow earth. We did a whole episode on that, but basically that this planet has some form of internal ecosystem rich with resources and life. Another writer, Duncan Lunan, suggested in Analog magazine that the children of Woolpit were aliens that somehow ended up on Earth. It was proposed that their home planet may have had a synchronous orbit around its star, leading to one small area for possible life. Suffice to say, a synchronous orbit is any object in space, like a planet or a moon or even a satellite, that orbits around something while keeping one face at it. The moon is a great example. It rotates at a specific speed, so as it orbits Earth, it keeps a particular face towards us. And on such a planet, you would have a sun side and a dark side. One would be frigid cold, one would be fiery hot, and somewhere around that rim, that kind of twilight equator, could be the perfect conditions for life. And that's kind of what the theory says.
I like how that solves the twilight thought. That's really, really cool. I mean, damn though, it just seems like their DNA structure fits ours perfectly, right? These are humans that just so happen to live off planet, and that one's hard for me because you mean to tell me the way that the atoms and cells and evolution, it literally took the same path as Earth with humans.
All the way down to the intelligent being the same looking thing, but with green skin.
Right. But green skin that eventually faded. Like, you know what I mean?
On a totally different planet. Right.
Yeah.
So exactly us.
Whoa,
Yeah, you're right.
it completely mimicked it and in much harsher conditions.
And they had the same, if nothing else, mouth anatomy.
Yeah.
And same form of communication. That's a great point.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Evolution,
I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
What a coincidence. That must be the only time in the unknown universe.
Right. Jeez. Imagine seeing like an alien planet with all these like gooplorps and 6-legged creatures walking around. And you're like, wow, this is a really strange, goofy place. You got 50-foot tall flowers and curly trees. Wait a minute. That's a human being down there. There's like, la, 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 I speak English.
Yeah. Could you imagine that? I'm like, that guy looks like my neighbor Dave.
Dave, what are you doing here?
It's on another planet.
Who's Dave? Are you Dave's?
But
that'd be so strange.
It'd be so strange to finally find another civilization on a planet, galaxy far away, and there's just us.
Wait a minute. He makes a good point. Star Wars, galaxy far, far away. They look an awful lot like a dude from Ohio.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, they do.
All right. Now, obviously, every aspect of this alien or even subterranean otherworldly theory relies a lot on assumptions. It doesn't really close the gap as we would like to see with a theory that answers this. It also has no concrete evidence.
But I do love, I know it, like you said, it's a meme for it, any theory to have an alien. But I do love seeing how people try and connect aliens to it.
Oh, yeah.
It's always just like, how you gonna do it this time?
Yeah. I love the idea of thinking about a Twilight world. I mean, that in and of itself is a wonderful thought experiment that very likely exists somewhere in this galaxy, in this universe, perhaps even with life. But another flaw with this particular theory is, how did they get here? Where's their memory from it? Is there any other witnesses as to how they got here, why they got here versus there here, somewhere else? It just says that they got here somehow. So, I don't know. It's an interesting story. I love it. I always love the idea of the paranormal, the supernatural. I'm always looking for him to be real. I'm looking for that concrete evidence.
I know.
But I'm going to criticize it along the way. I'm going to make sure it stands up. But it does kind of resemble some of the modern interpretations of little green men. Or at least when we were growing up, Christian Fredo, it did seem like it was little green men. Now I think we're more in a territory of little gray men. Or beings, I should say. Not men, but...
Yeah, I mean, you're completely correct. At some point within the last 5 years of like, oh, we're saying gray aliens a lot as opposed to green aliens.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, ain't they green no more?
It might have been me. Someone like me anyway.
Yeah.
Colorblind out there going like... What's that gray thing? And they're like, that green, that
Green
bright
thing?
green being?
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful soft gray. Yeah.
I feel like it's been both. Because I'm sitting here thinking about it. I always remember Little Green Men, but then like when we did the Men in Black episode, we're looking at a lot of famous gray alien examples.
And they're called the Greys.
Yeah. I guess it's like a cultural thing, maybe. Just like, what did you grow up hearing? Like how people say soda, but some people say pop. Is it one of those things?
Some people are right and some people are wrong.
I will say
no, I feel like it was really like a Pokemon starter situation where Charizard was just the most, that was the green aliens. Everyone knows green alien Charizard. But as time goes on, people want to mix it up and they're like, well, Venusaur was better. I'm like, no one liked Venusaur, bro. Like, it's like,
you picked the camp based on the least popular, you child hipster.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. Where it's just like, come on, you had three choices. One was a dragon that breathed fire. The other one was a turtle with water cannons on his back. And the other one was just some green sloppy plant thing.
sloppy whips, with dead eyes.
But as time goes on, people like change things up. So like Venusaur was the best. It was my favorite starter. I'm like, no, it wasn't.
Yeah, they're trying to Mandela effect you.
Yeah.
They're just, I don't know about all that.
So that's why Gray's on the up and up.
It's true. I also do think it's because of people like Bob Lazar, right? Because like there's more stories coming out now with people with vivid experiences, and they usually point to Gray. And so maybe it's because of these very popular, anecdotes coming to the forefront that might be. Maybe these guys are like the Venusaur kids. Maybe they're trying to sway it to the unpopular Grays. We got to see about Green Team. Anyway, let's move on. I don't know if this is worth keeping.
But I mean,
alien hipsters coming in with their like, no, they were great.
But the thing is, though, if everyone's saying green and you want to be different and you have some sort of credibility and you say they're gray, then people are like, oh, it's different. It's not like the usual, what people say.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something here.
Right. Which reminds me, total non sequitur. And I'm saying this just because I remembered it. It has nothing to do with what you said, but literally yesterday, kicking it in my backyard, just throwing the frisbee around, just with myself, using the wind. And then
Damn.
what do I see? I look up, a craft, like 2 plates upturned with a cup on top of it. Like a little
really?
teacup. Yeah, dude, it came down. I saw a little blue man inside wave. He zipped off. He was also playing the drums. He was doing a bit of percussion.
What?
It
But
took
then
me
he
way
zipped
too
back
long
off.
to tell if you were being serious or not.
I know.
And so all I'm trying to say is there might be blues out there. And it's
there you
not the
go.
Blue Man Group. He
There
wasn't
you go.
splashing paint.
He's trying to switch it up.
Oh, my
Louis.
God.
Anyway, Venusaur is my favorite. Let's move on. So the last theory is that third angle that I wanted to address. It's a fascinating take, so let's dive in. Some people believe that the story of the Green Children of Woolpit is simply folklore or some form of allegory for something that actually happened. So what could have happened that created this folklore? Well, it could have been an allegory for the Britons, an indigenous group that inhabited England before the Anglo-Saxons, according to medieval historian Geoffrey Jerome Cohen. The legend could tell the story about assimilation. Other historians, such as Martin Welsh, suggest that the inclusion of Saint Martin as a figure with connections to the other world, by some accounts, makes this story a, quote, garbled retelling of a harvest ritual related to Saint Martin's Day or, serendipitously, Old Halloween.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like I said, we're recording this on Halloween, so I thought
Yeah.
this was like a fun little thing. Saint Martin is the patron saint of beggars and the poor, which the children could be considered. It is worth noting that other historians disagree with Saint Martin having otherworldly connections, but either way, it is an interesting, grounded way to explain this as a folklore. You know,
Yeah.
a different take on the old Halloween story. Then you have K.M. Briggs, folklorist and writer, who wrote, quote, "It is to be noticed, too, that the habitual food of the children was beans, the food of the dead," end quote. It is worth noting that, of course, beans have different connotations anywhere you are in the world, but it could help. Again, folklore and allegories are always kind of riddled with metaphor. And so when you start to look for symbolic imagery, things like that, like it does help ground it in that sense. So you stop looking for pragmatic answers to why this story was the way it was, and you start looking for more, oh, this is how it could be interpreted.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do want to address that trying to establish some sort of meaning out of a potential folklore, these 3 angles are a little flimsy, right? So it's worth asking, where does this story come from, and assessing it from that angle. Because, again, if we're going to try to say that this is definitely a folklore, it's worth noting its history. So the story of the children comes from 2 authors. You have Ralph of Coggeshall and William of Newborough. It's important to note that neither of them witnessed the stories that they retold, nor did they meet either of these children firsthand. So immediately, we know that there's a gap between if this was a historical event and them retelling it, you're going to have some mistellings, some game of telephone. Or is this a point in the column of this being folklore, right?
Got it.
Because some time went past. In fact, Ralph claimed to have heard the story from Richard de Caen, and his first version was published in 1220. Williams, on the other hand, was published in 1189. But either way, both of these published stories came many decades, within the 100 years, of course, but many decades after the story took place. So, I don't know. Aspects of the tale could have become embellished in a certain way, leading to more folklore elements to be inserted into it. That kind of knocks out some of the validity of it to me a little bit, because like that game of telephone could shake the truth out of it. But either way, I think that is an important note because it adds some blur to the entire story. But either way, with the idea of this being folklore, there is no evidence or records that the children of Woolpit even existed. Of course, that shouldn't be surprising given the time period and being from such a small village. But either way, I love the idea of this being folklore. The picking up of imagery and symbolism is a little shallow, but I do think it helps address some of the holes in the more practical theories.
Yeah.
And it could also show why this story stood the test of time rather than being lost. I don't know. What do you think about this like folklore angle? It's interesting, but again, there's not a whole lot there.
There's not too much that connects to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just more so like it's just folklore.
Yeah, I mean, I love the St. Martin's Day thing, but it's basically, being the patron saint of beggars and the poor. It's like, it's just the kids.
Even then, that's being questioned too, right?
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, I think this one, just you could poke holes from it from different angles.
Yeah. I'm just looking at these like 3 different angles or 4 different angles, and none of them really address every piece. They all go, well, the kids could stand for this, but that's it. I mean, I think the strongest one of these could be the assimilation story, but it's such a very specific way to tell that story. It's to like 2 people moving into a small village with green skin.
Yeah, it's over the
and
top.
Then kind of becoming part of the town, but then one of them dies. But like,
it's so over the top.
I'm trying to find like, is it kind of like old school, like very like 12th century,
like storytelling,
sensationalism,
propaganda, or is it like? Because otherwise, I'm missing. I don't know. This is just interesting. I just like thinking about it through this lens because it's not something that we normally do. But anyway, that's the story of the Green Children of Woolpit. Like I said, not much about the wolf pit itself.
No, surprisingly.
Yeah.
I thought there was going to be way more about this pit.
Yeah. But it became more about the cave systems, potentially the forest up north.
Mm-hmm.
Man, the idea of it being like Flemish immigrants still feels really strong. Still feels like, but like even then, I can see how curious
it's the memory loss thing.
It is the memory.
But then again, it's so far back. Who's to say that people, well, I don't know. Like that's the thing, right? Who's to say that they didn't just add that piece in about the memory loss? But then again, the very little that we do have from the sister doesn't really combat that. So yeah, it's just so difficult because so far back.
I think it is interesting though that, like to your point, Alfredo, the official story that people first heard came from these 2 authors, and they heard it secondhand. So already, you're not reporting on the most accurate thing, and they're, this is maybe an assumption on my part, they're storytellers. Maybe they're hearing this thing going, oh, let me talk about this. Well, it might be more interesting if I were to say that they didn't speak any English. Who's to say it's not the first theory with the immigrants that's just been embellished. That's the word. Yeah,
that's a great point. And that's why I think the folklore thing stands out so much to me, because if nothing else, you can just go, this didn't happen. And you go, well, it does feel like a fantastic story.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a more historical assessment of it. Otherwise, just theory is that it's a story.
Exactly.
It's just so easy to embellish, right?
Yes, 100%.
Like I could throw a paper on the ground right now and then tell that story, live in front of the task force or something like that. Like, oh, we told the Green Children, and I threw a paper on the ground, but it'd be just a little bit more of a hit, like emotionally to the audience. Like I threw 10 papers on the ground.
Right, he threw a book down.
Right, yeah,
he threw like a ream of paper.
And so it's just like, well, it's still accurate. You just make it a little bit more entertaining.
It's just a little white lie. It doesn't hurt nobody. I mean, I wouldn't know. I don't tell stories. I only tell the truth. And I saw a blue alien. But yeah, man, this is a very interesting story. And what a way to just, again, I'm going to break the 4th wall for the task force. What a fantastic way to end the workday. Recording a little mystery here on Halloween. Very excited to go home, chill, hand out candy to strange children. See how they dress up this year. There's always a theme, like a pervasive theme. I'm expecting a lot of Five Nights at Freddy's masks and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But that Marvel's been taking it, right? These last couple years. A lot of like Iron Mans and a lot of Cap Americas, a lot of Wonder Womans, though. DC's coming back.
Yeah, DC will always be around.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, Task Force, thank you so much for listening. As always, if you want to support the show, there's a few ways you can do that. For free, you can share this with any friend that you want to have joined the Task Force. It's a great way to support the show and help spread the love of true crime and mystery.
Goes a long way.
Absolutely. And another way is by going to redwebpod.com/first. Sign up for First. It is essentially our Patreon model, and it supports us 100%. It's the number one way to financially support this show, and we're so grateful for you. And as a thank you to you all First members who join us on the Rooster Teeth site and Rooster Teeth app, we give you a bonus episode of Case Files. So when that comes out in the next couple weeks, you will get an exclusive bonus episode every other week, as well as ad-free listening here on the podcast. We're also going to do live streams once a month. We do polls every now and then to go to our first member exclusive Discord to come hang out with you guys. And last week, we sat down with you all and did a debrief on the Denver airport mystery. So that way you guys could ask us questions and we could kind of look up and dive more in depth into some of the photos, some of the theories, and just kind of have a good time while doing it. It's just a real fun way to hang out with you guys in the task force. But again, it also supports us 100%. There's no middleman in play. It all comes straight to the show. So with that said, Fredo, I will see you right back here next Monday for another mystery.